Before we continue with today's session, it is so important that we do an acknowledgement of traditional lands. Royal Roads University acknowledges that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Cossacton, Esquimalt, and Lekwungen Songhees ancestors and families. It is with gratitude that we now learn and work here, where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. Welcome. So today's session, just to make sure everybody's in the right room, we're going to be talking about how can an MBA work for you. And with me today, I have Dr. Amy Zidulka, who is an associate professor. My name is Emara Angus, and I'm an education specialist. And we have a whole panel of MBA students here as well that we'll be getting to meet later on. So we have Tara Black, Matt Klymson, Trevor Koot, Lara Mitchell, Tyler Pronyk, Hunter Visser. And I wanted to mention, they'll be saying their own names later, just in case I mispronounced any of their last names there. Welcome. So today's agenda, we're doing it right now. We're doing the welcome. Hello, it's great to see people. We have people from, Glasgow, Scotland, 7 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy. We have Victoria, BC. I'm just reading the chat. We have some more Victoria, Kamloops, it's a beautiful day. Revelstoke, cloudy, rainy, Richmond. Wow, we have people from all over. That's so great to see. We're then going to jump into a program overview. We're going to go to our question and answer session with MBA student panel. And as I mentioned before, questions answered throughout. So pop them in the chat and we'll get to them. And if we don't get to them during the session, we'll have a bit of time at the end where we'll then be able to ask everyone the questions. Okay, and now I'm so pleased to welcome up Dr. Amy Zidulka for a program overview, and she'll be introducing herself as well.
Hello, everybody. Great to meet you. Thanks for coming. So my name is Dr. Amy Zidulka, and I have been at Royal Roads for over 20 years, and for most of that time involved with the MBA program. And my area of expertise is creativity and innovation. So how can organizations become more innovative, especially if you don't work for Apple or Google, but you work in some bureaucracy? That's my interest. And but I'm on the MBA steering committee, very involved in the program, so I can probably answer most of your questions about the program. And I guess I'll say up front that I love the MBA. I think it's, I just finished teaching a final class for the MBA learners, the last group that went through, and we did a roundtable circle at the end. And honestly, there was not a dry eye, because not just the learning, the academic learning, the professional advancement, but also the sense of personal connection that people felt having gone through the program together was just astounding. So yeah, so I guess, do I have control over the slides, or is that you, Emara? So let's go to the slides. Okay, so the basics. You have a choice between an 18-month or a 31-month blended format. So blended means that you come to campus, and I mean, COVID permitting, right? And it seems like things are opening up, and you spend 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, sorry, it's 2 weeks, just with your cohort. And for many people, this seems like a barrier, right? Because taking 2 weeks off, average age of our students is quite, it's 40-ish, depending on the year. So people have jobs, kids, responsibilities, all of that stuff. And yet, when you meet people in person and when you spend time with them, then when you're online, you have this bond. Now, you don't need to come on campus to have this bond, and you will be hearing in a moment from some of the students that went through the program during COVID, and it's incredible how they came together. But the residency for, when it's not COVID's time is sort of a special thing of people coming together. So, so you blended means it's partially on campus and then you're online for the rest of it. So 18 months if you're doing 2 classes at a time, 31 months if you're doing 1 class at a time. We now have a fully on-campus option, which will start this fall. And that is you do your classes in a year, and then you do your specialties with online with the online students. So the courses, it is what you would get from an MBA curriculum. Like you have your finance, you have your accounting, your marketing, your org change, operations, leadership, change management, strategy, risk management. So, and all of that, I see that Tracy put the link in the chat. All of that, I mean, I could go on about each course and what is special about it, but really you get a great foundation coming out with a Master's of Business. So I think two differentiators in our program, and happily I'm involved in both of them. I'll start with the OMP, the Organizational Management Project. So at the end of your MBA, you do a research project, applied research project with a client. So, so that's where you go and you apply, you dig into an area of your MBA learning that will most help the client that you're working with. And you go deep into deeply understanding the problem from an academic lens, but then applying it practically, everything you've learned. So this is, you know, when I've been through different reviews over the years, you know, we've had many external reviews of the MBA. The rigor of this project is always noted. And when we hear from students in the future who've graduated, they often say that this project led them to a promotion, led them to a new career, because they'll do something that they're interested in, and then of course they'll move into that area. So that's something that's unique about the program, as is live business challenges, which come up at several points within the program. But the most prominent, right at the start, you have a live challenge when you begin the program with a real client. And then right at the end for the final residency, and that's what I just led, and it was really fun and amazing. The students did amazing work. So you get two companies. They have to be of a certain size, not too small. They have to be worth it to get all MBA students, mid-career professionals, all collaborating to work on this company, but not too big, you know, because we want them to value the advice. Coca-Cola can afford, they'll go get their own consultants, right? So we get a medium-sized company, and they just open up to you as a class, and we go through a process with business practitioners mentoring you, using an innovation process to guide us, lots of guest faculty, where you then at the end come up with recommendations for that client. And that is also an intense and meaningful experience that comes at the end of the program. And so what people see is how far they've come. What people are able to produce at the end is phenomenal. There are also live clients. We have a lot of connections with the business community. There's live clients along the way. The students can talk about that. So in classes as well, there will be live client experiences. All right, let's move on. So specialization options. So this allows you to customize to what you want. And so there are different options. You can go through the program, and there's a core set of courses you can take, specialized courses, or you can also end your program by taking a grad certificate. So that way, when you graduate, you have both your MBA and a graduate certificate. So you can look at the list here on the slide. And so if we go through them, international business, this one is in non-COVID times. It's a very rich experience where you go to Europe and Asia for a trip lined up with local businesses, go and visit them, expert faculty. Management consulting is very popular, and because we have an agreement with the certified management consultant body. So the Royal Roads degree, if you do the consulting option, takes you pretty far down the road to getting your consultancy accreditation. Everything you do counts towards that. And so, and then you take your specialty courses in consulting. And for many Royal Road students, especially those, not only, but especially there, we have quite a few older students who are transitioning. You know, maybe they've been in business for 20 years and now they're going to go consult. And this gives you an accreditation to put up your shingle and become a consultant. So it's a really great transition path. leadership is very common and very very well beloved by the students who take it. And that's, of course, looking at different ways to be an effective and inspirational leader. And I think some of the students in the room are in that stream, so I'll let them speak to it. Change management, again, affiliated with the Association of Change Management Professionals. We all know things are in constant change and how every single project needs a change management plan. So again, that's another option. Executive coaching, life-changing program, because you're coaching, you're being coached, and you're learning the skills to be an effective executive coach, as well as, I think, the business, how getting your business started as well. Strategic human resource management, and of course, project management is a sought after credential to be a certified project manager. So you have the option of getting a grad cert alongside your MBA as part of the MBA. So advantages, cohort based. So I can't stress this enough. The students will bring this to life. You don't understand it until you experience it. But working with people that you get to know in a cohort is a completely different experience than just showing up at a class with sort of random people. So we've been doing this for a long time. So Royal Roads was a military college, and in the 90s, when we transitioned into being a university, it was named from the start as a special purpose university to work with mid-career learners. And at the time, it was so radical that you could learn on the internet, right? It was a lot of people's first email address. And so this kind of education for people who are not conventional students, maybe, who have been in the workforce for a bit, that's what we do. And that's what we've always done. And that's what we know. The people next to you. So I until last year, I was on the admissions committee, and we look at every application and we say, if we accept this person, is it fair to the person sitting next to them who's going to be on a team with them? And our primary criterion is professional experience. School, our philosophy is basically, whether if you got a good mark in calculus 20 years ago, that's not what makes you a great manager, right? Even though we love people who got great marks in calculus, that's great too. So, but we look at the quality of the cohort. That's important to us. Focus on applied learning. Again, that's Royal Roads was founded on the basis of applied learning always. And you can do a dual degree, a master's of global management, which our marketing team can talk to you about more. That's not my area, but you could do a dual degree with global management and an MBA. Is that all for me, Emara?
Thank you so much, Amy. That was a great overview of the program. And thank you, Tracy, for popping all those links in the chat. So now we're going to meet our MBA students. And I'm going to stop sharing my slides because I think it would be really great for us to see all the faces of our student panel. Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us today. I'd love it if we could go and do a quick roundtable and have you introduce yourself. And we're going to start with the order of the list. So Tara, I'll invite you to do a quick intro.
Hi, I'm Tara. I live and work in Victoria. I own bakeries that we exclusively work with gluten-free foods. I'm a part of the 18-month program with all of these lovely students that you see. So we're each other's cohort. And it's intense, but it's really, really good. That's my intro. Moving on.
Thank you, Tara. Matt.
Hello, my name is Matt Klymson. I'm also currently residing in Victoria, British Columbia. I work for a large Canadian and North American investment firm in an educational capacity internally. I work with students all across North America, and being a student myself, again, has really helped me connect with that activity in a really profound way.
Thank you, Matt. Trevor.
Hi everyone, Trevor Koot. I'm in Kamloops, British Columbia. I am the former CEO of 2 real estate associations here in British Columbia, which merged recently and resulted in my unemployment for a brief period. Emara told us that we had to wear jackets today, so I'm all dressed up, but I see that nobody else got the memo, so I don't know what happened there.
I thought we said Royal Roads hoodies. And next, thank you, Trevor, for introducing yourself. And next we have Lara.
Hi, my name is Lara Mitchell. I'm based in Edmonton, Alberta. I've always been an entrepreneur and I felt like getting my MBA is sort of a real treat to myself to kind of double down on my area of interest. And yeah, I'm very pleased with the adventure here at Royal Roads.
Thank you, Lara. Next, we have Tyler.
Hey everyone, Tyler Pronyk here, based in Richmond, British Columbia. I sort of did a kind of a weird approach to my MBA. I decided to leave the private sector after many, many years with the same employer and then start consulting while I was doing my MBA. So I don't necessarily recommend starting a business and an MBA at the same time, but I survived the year and I'm really delighted to share my experience with you all today.
Thank you, Tyler. And Hunter.
Hey there, my name's Hunter Visser. I'm based out of Revelstoke, BC. I was really excited to join the MBA after about 8 years working in the learning and development industry and was just looking to upgrade my education and found a great university that took students through a workplace, work experience placement. So really excited to be here.
Thank you all for the introduction. So for the rest of today's panel, we're going to kind of jump around with the panelists who'd like to speak up about some of the different questions. So the first question I have, and many of you have kind of alluded to it or started answering it, is what made you want to do an MBA? And what drew you to the Royal Roads MBA program in particular?
So,
Matt, go. Oh, Matt and then Hunter.
Sure. So what I was finding is that in any corporate environment, there just seems to be a limit to the, I guess, breadth of the self-development and learning opportunities you can have. And having this focus of, well, we're not taking necessarily a complete degree in any of these one courses, we are spending a significant amount of time on them. And so it's just an increased way to delve into things that your organization might not have a full learning path about. And also just the perspective of you're dealing with instructors, you're dealing with different material, you're dealing with many of your fellow students and peers and getting a different perspective. And those perspectives are hugely important versus working inside a certain company where you get tracked into perhaps one culture and one type of echo chamber experiences.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the echo chamber, I know exactly what you mean. It's so good to get that diversity of perspectives. And Hunter, what you were going to add to that as well?
yeah, so I was, I kind of had an interesting entry into my career. I came out of a professional sports background and went into a career working in learning and development. And after about 8 years working there, I was looking to go back and get some education and learn some more technical business skills that you would learn through a business degree. And so as I started looking, I realized that there were some MBAs that you could get in with work experience, and I'd sort of gotten into that threshold where you could get in without a previous degree. So I was looking for a university that did that, one that was based in BC that had a hybrid program and also well recognized, and also that I didn't have to move and leave my hometown here in Revelstoke to pursue it. So it sort of ticked all of the boxes, and I'm really grateful to share my education with this great cohort.
Thank you. Thank you. And just to add on to that, so for Royal Roads MBA and all of our programs at Royal Roads, we have standard and flexible admission. So the flexible admission is kind of what Hunter is talking about, where we look at more than just like that standard admission requirement. We look at your work experience, your past education, and we look at the whole picture. So I know Tracy can probably pop in a chat in the, let me say that again. Pop in a link in the chat about our different kinds of admission. And Trevor, I see your hand is raised. Over to you.
I just wanted, just because it differs from both what Matt and Hunter were saying, my motivation is a lot more practical. It's slightly more selfish, and it really is just the 3 letters behind my name. I entered the program in order to become an MBA, and I'm going through the program to achieve the MBA. And I don't think it diminishes the, well, I know it doesn't diminish the value that I'm getting out of the program. But my motivation certainly started out differently. And then choosing Royal Roads, it was completely happenstance for me. I was chatting with somebody. I had no intention of kind of going down any of these roads, and it was a recent grad, and they talked me into it, and so I applied.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that too. We all have different motivations when we're looking at programs and why we want to do them. Does anybody else have anything to add, or should we go to the next question? Oh, I see, Matt, your hand is up.
I'm back. Yes. I also just want to say that with respect to RRU in particular, one thing that drew me to this program was that RRU's entire history is founded on the concept of distance learning. And I was much more interested in that than perhaps another program where it seems that maybe it's still in transition of trying to figure out over a number of years how to go from in-person learning to remote or distance learning. That was very comforting to me to know that everyone involved with RRU already has a good handle on that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So let's jump to the next question. And I know Amy spoke a bit about this in the program overview, but I'd love to hear directly from the students, what kind of projects and courses are you working on? Like if you want to tell us a bit about what you're doing like right now.
We all just moved into our, I'll take this one, guys. We just started into our, or some of us, I should say, because Tyler, I know that you did your specialization last summer in concert with a couple of other courses. We're kind of finishing up the class portion of the MBA now. So we all started in January of last year. We are, some of us are in our specialization courses now, leadership and management consulting. And all of us, I would assume, are working deep into our OMPs, the Organizational Management Project that Amy alluded to, and preparing for, I don't know if this has happened with other cohorts, but just because of COVID, we are all anticipating with bated breath to meet each other for the very first time in person in June. We haven't, most of us have not even seen each other or been in person together. So we're really, I think everybody's looking forward to that. Maybe people aren't. I am.
Thank you. I know what you mean. I'm looking forward to meeting people as well. I did a program recently and it was one that had a on-campus residency, but it was online for COVID. And it would be kind of really amazing to meet the people in person that you've been working so closely with. But at the same time, it kind of reminds you how much of a relationship you can build with somebody in a fully online capacity. Like, look at you guys, right? Like you are all friends and joking and have a whole just great relationship. So it is really cool to see. Does anybody have anything else to add, or did Trevor kind of act as the good spokesperson for that question?
Trevor, you did very well.
All right. The next question I wanted to ask, and it was one that came in through the chat, and it was a question I was going to ask later, but somebody direct messaged me, and I'd love to bring it up now, is what strategies have you used to maintain work, school, life balance? And in particular, when attending the residency, because I know even in the case of the residency for the MBA, it might have been online, but you're still very committed to that time spent for that time doing the residency. So what kind of strategies did you have for the work-life school balance? And Tyler, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, so I'd say from my perspective, and I've always looked at school and assignments and sort of based my investment on kind of the returns. So, you know, how I've been able to like prioritize a bit more of my work-life balance and my work is, you know, the stuff that really matters. I give it my all, or the stuff that I really think I'm going to learn the most from. That's where I'll invest my time. And there might be some other things where maybe it's not worth as much as a GPA or a grade, but so I won't necessarily prioritize it. And so you kind of just make choices, you know, like you want to be committed to your team. I think that's a really important piece because they rely on you. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there around, you know, managing even things with work. Like if something comes up and, you know, Trevor and I are on a team, then, you know, Trevor can go do his work thing and the rest of us kind of swoop in and get it fixed. And as long as there's like a feeling of balance and fairness amongst the team, like it's all worked quite nicely as we've navigated that all, because, you know, it is a pandemic. Everyone's got stuff, like whether it's, you know, kids, work, hobbies, travel, family stuff, and it's just, you know, being there for each other. So that's how I kind of approached it. Is I prioritized what mattered, and what mattered was my team and the assignments based on their grade worth.
We should point out that Tyler is balancing like 23 kids during all of this too. He's got like 15 kids, Tyler?
4 kids.
Four.
And we got a puppy last year, which was an insane decision, but she's finally, and she might pop up at some point, but she's finally calmed down a little bit. But
23 kids.
You can overcome
that's
it.
a lot of kids. And if your puppy does make a little appearance in the background, that's my favorite part of online virtual sessions, is when people's pets come across the screen. So that is fully welcome. Thank you for sharing that. And Lara, I see your hand is raised as well.
I think, well, the residency, the online residency that we had was so immersive. It was like a full-on, all-in experience, which I think really set us up for success for the rest of the program, to be able to know what it really takes to show up to it. And, you know, to your question of, you know, how the work-life balance there, it certainly worked for me to, you know, call in all help, right? You know, just, you know, setting up a life where there are no extra expectations on me in the other areas of my life, and in the places where I normally am playing support, instead I'm asking for help. And, you know, being really clear about that up front. I think, you know, so far that's worked great. And the other thing I really love about the Royal Roads cohort system and the synchronized classes and the way that it's set up is the sense of community. So it really does feel that we're really there for each other. We have, you know, a WhatsApp thread where we all connect together. And yeah, you know, I've actually had my kids come and check on me because I'm laughing so hard they wonder what's wrong, because of, you know, some of the funny memes and jokes and just some really great camaraderie, and that certainly helped keep everything in balance.
Thank you for sharing that. And that is such an important thing, is setting the expectations with the people in your life and making sure that they know that you are going to school and you are doing an intensive, amazing, but intensive program, and that you're going to need some support and that you might not be reachable for a while. And just making sure people know that. Thank you for sharing that. Is there any other comments from the panelists around this question?
I would add, I think it's really important we all go into this with a motivation or an expectation of something that we're doing for ourselves. So that's a big piece to acknowledge for yourself. Whether you take the 18-month or the 31-month, though, each course demands a lot of focus. So whether or not it's one course at a time, 2 courses, or sometimes 3, it's being flexible with yourself and the expectations. You have no idea what your life is going to be like in 12 months from now, in 18 months from now, and 30 months from now. So taking the time to reevaluate where you're at after each course is done, to make sure that you are in a good space for yourself, to whether or not you need to take a break, or you've got it in you to keep going, and you check in with those that you are supporting and that are supporting you, because their balances are shifting and changing all the time too. So I don't know. I can honestly say that the last 12 months have been a roller coaster on so many different fronts. So it's good to just constantly be checking back in.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's so true, is like you're all here in the 18-month, which is the most intensive of the two options. So the importance of checking in. And I know that we do have a lot of support at Royal Roads that you can reach out. And do you have anybody in your cohort who has shifted to the 31-month just based on their schedule and ability? I think you might have had some people.
Yeah, we actually started with a huge cohort, like one of the largest ones RU's put together. There was just over 50 of us. There are not that many of us in the program. Some people have left, some people have transitioned, some people are just taking a break. Like I said, it's good to have that flexibility. My dog's about to go nuts. Talking about animals coming into the space, just want to give you an awareness.
Thank you. Yeah, and if people do need to take a bit of a break, Amy, I see you're about to.
Yeah, I just want to build on that 18 versus 31-month option. So 18-month program, there's no denying it. Taking 2 courses at once is, this is an MBA. You know, like we at Royal Roads want this degree to be, not just one, it has to be credible, you know? We owe it to all our graduates, all our alumni, that this is a high quality degree. So taking 2 courses at once is an intense thing. And I personally, when they introduced the 31-month program, was really glad, because there are many, many, many people who should have MBAs, but 18-month program was just too much to juggle, and you can switch between them. So in terms of people coming and going, and I don't know the latest statistics, but we have one of the lowest attrition rates of any online, because of the cohort bonding. Very, very few people don't graduate. You do graduate, and most people graduate within the time commitment, and then some people graduate, they switch from 18 to 31, or life gets in the way and they come back, or whatever happens. So it's possible to do it quickly, but it's also, I always really honor it when students say, you know what, I need to slow this down. I have stuff going on in my life.
Thank you, Amy, so much for adding that. It's so important to hear that. And so everybody in the room knows that it's okay to switch around, and that does happen. And we are supportive and flexible. Hunter, I see you raised your hand there.
Yeah, I was just going to say one last thing to add is I really liked how the courses are, they're roughly like 9 weeks in total. So even though you're doing 1 or 2 or 3 courses at a time, it's easier to remain focused on that course because you're not focusing on 6 courses over 6 months or longer. So your head's kind of in the game for those 9 weeks, and then you move on to the next subject and you can really focus on that when it comes up.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. It's sometimes very nice to just be able to focus and then keep going. I understand that. So now my next question, we've been talking a lot about what the program's like while you're in it, because all of you are current students. But I wanted to know a bit more about how you feel the MBA is preparing you, or has already prepared you, because I know a lot of you are working for the workplace and your career. So how do you feel the MBA is preparing you and equipping you with the tools that you need for the workplace and your career? Tyler.
No, excuse me. As I unmuted, I coughed. I apologize. So I kind of alluded to at the beginning, like I came into the program after 12 years in the private sector, was doing started my career in HR, moved into supply chain operations, decided I wanted something different, moved to the MBA, or got into the MBA. And in my mind, I was going to do management consulting. And in the meantime, I was going to do some consulting while I was doing school for added flexibility. And kind of through that process, I ended up opting for the communications grad certificate. So I did that concurrently with one of the distance learning sessions last year. And that was somewhat strategic on my part because I wanted to get as much content consumed and done while COVID restrictions were happening, because we weren't going to be traveling, we weren't going to be doing anything. So I was able to double up on that. And so since then, I've actually pivoted my consulting practice completely to communications. And although I haven't got the credential yet, it's such a kind of credibility builder to signal, I have an MBA that's specialized in communications, working towards the MBA. And it's been a huge kind of, it's well received by clients, and it almost makes it easier to charge them consulting hours. So it's been good. And at the same time, the program itself was hands-on. There was an additional residency. I got to meet a bunch of communications people. So it worked really well for me in that regard to pivot into a new career during the program.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome to hear, just that kind of the background and how you feel it's helping you now. So next I see Matt, you raised your hand.
Sure. For me, it was understanding that in my professional career in various organizations, if we cross-reference that with the list of core subjects that we're taking during the MBA, whether it's risk management, operations, strategy, corporate finance, human resources, I've done a little bit of all of that, but there's always room to grow and learn more. And there's within each one of these sections, depending on how much you want to invest in it, if you have a particular area of interest, there's a lot of opportunity for growth. But what I would say the biggest opportunity for growth came in was we all make this assumption that we can work with people, and we do it because we do it every day. But what I found is that this structure of having a cohort and being assigned on different teams, and most importantly, teams where there is no organizational structure of saying that when push comes to shove, there's someone is the leader, someone is making a decision, and learning how to time and time again actually work with people on an effective manner on an absolute flat peer basis where no one is the leader is really being quite transformative.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a really interesting takeaway. And I have heard that before when people talk about some of our programs, is that team dynamic and that learning to work with people. And I've had people even say that they thought they were incredible at working with people. And then they realized they had a lot to learn. And that's so interesting and humbling to be in that situation and learn that. So thank you for sharing your experience with the team. And Trevor, I see your hand is raised.
When I'll go back to when I applied to the MBA program, I had no business applying. I didn't really do much homework on it. I just kind of decided to apply and put my name in. Again, my motivation being the MBA. So I didn't really have an expectation of what the learning was going to be, but you kind of anticipate, and it goes back to what Matt was saying, you kind of anticipate there's going to be something far more practical. You're going to go in and start writing business plans, and you're going to start writing new strategy for a specific company or something of that nature. And there's not none of that, but there's very little of it. It really is designed to help you think differently and help you approach problems differently. And as Matt said, that environment of working with teams is a big component of how you start to look at things differently and look at yourself involved in these problems differently. So for me, the learning, the applicable learning was pretty well right out of the gate. And it was, there were aspects from, two examples that I can think of right away is organizational behavior and change management. I mean, I was going into a merger, like working through a merger, and you talk about aspects of change. Some of that stuff was applicable right away. We started looking at ED&I, equity, diversity, and inclusion in our workplace. And that was a big part of our organizational behavior aspect. But it wasn't, this is how you do ED&I. This is the aspect of ED&I and how it might change the workplace. And so it's just important to go in with the realization that it's not going to be ticking boxes and putting practical things in place. It's really a foundational aspect of changing your thinking or understanding how you're thinking and appreciating it. At least for me.
Seeing the nods of people and your fellow cohort, I think they agree with you. So it might not just be for you, those learnings of how things have changed. It's more than just checking a box. Lara, I see your hand is raised as well.
Thank you. I've been consulting throughout the program, and it's been a really interesting journey of learning, being able to take my learnings and bring them in practical application, and really seeing how, wow, I didn't even know that these concepts existed. So there has been a lot of surprise of how much I didn't know. I would have said you know, that I had a pretty thorough understanding of business. And then I had a real discovery of realizing of what I didn't know. So that certainly has demonstrated the value of the program.
Thank you for sharing that. And it sounds a lot like you have to enter the program with an open mind, because if you don't, you have to be open to learning and all the different things that were the opportunity to learn in the program. So I have a question that came through the chat that I'm going to kind of modify a little bit so that it fits everyone in the room. Actually, from the student panelists, have any of you done an undergraduate program at Royal Roads University? Just shake your head or nod your head. No. Okay, so you won't be able to answer, because we have a question about comparing the undergraduate program time commitment to the MBA. So what I'm going to ask is, what is the weekly time commitment that you find that you have to put aside for the MBA? Like, what does that look like for you? If you can speak more about, or the monthly, like what is the time commitment that you have to put to the MBA? And everybody's laughing.
Honestly, more than you expect. There's each course, especially if you're in the 18-month program, there's a lot of reading. I have no university academia background, so I'm one of those flexible admission people. I love reading. I'm a fast reader. I absorb information quickly. So when I say there's a lot of reading, it's a lot. There's some weeks that you're asked to digest about 400 pages of different articles and different textbooks. So it's not even within the same context that you're looking at. You're having to develop some really tight skills for comprehension and be able to turn it around and show that you don't only, like, you understood the words, but you actually got the meaning and you can apply it. So it's impressive, the delivery. It's well thought out. It's not too much. However, you need more time than you think you would going into it, part and parcel because you're doing something that you really have to stretch. And that takes a lot of mental stamina. So.
Thank you, Tara, for sharing that and the expectation of going in with more than you anticipate. So next I see Tyler, you have your hand raised.
So I think it's a really hard question to answer because it depends on the course. It depends on your comfort level with them. You know, for me, academic writing was not an area of, I'd call it weakness. It was an area of weakness. I hadn't done it. It was unknown. It was scary. So I do think some of those earlier papers were a lot more, took a lot more time because I was just like, what's a topic sentence and how do I structure this? And I was so tied up into the process that I wasn't even really consuming what I was trying to say because I just wanted to make sure I was writing it academically. And so I think it really varies and depends on you as an individual. I also think it's really important to know what your strengths are when it comes to deadlines. So, you know, I'm a pressure prompted person. I will never hand in anything late, but I also won't start things early. And, you know, there was times in early days where I'd be talking to some of my fellow cohort members and they would be talking about how they were on like their second or third draft of a paper that I hadn't even done an outline for. And, you know, I found that could be really stressful. Then I realized, well, that's them. This is how I work. And so, you know, I'd have big investments where like a whole weekend might be invested in reading, writing, and doing the paper versus some of my cohort members might do it over a 4-week period. And so that's how I managed my work because, you know, the previous weekend, maybe I got to go do something fun, but that next weekend I would commit 48 hours of like graduate cramming to get it in. So it really varies.
Thank you. I really like that term, pressure prompted person. I wrote that down because it's just like, I kind of can relate to that. Absolutely. Though I do aspire to be somebody who plans something out and has that 4-week lead up time and multiple drafts, but we'll get there eventually. Over to you, Matt. I see you'd like to say something as well.
Sure. One thing to be aware of is that in all of the courses, there are some larger deliverables in the form of assignments. Some of them are done individually, some of them are done with your teams. And So in some cases, you will be working to your own schedule, but in some cases, you need to find a way of working with other people's schedules as well. But within that, there's these larger assignments, which are self-evident, but there is, in most of the courses, there's also a fairly regular ongoing flow of obligations that you have to participate in online discussion forums in various ways with your fellow students. And these are a large part of your contribution grade, which depend on the course, constitutes maybe 15 to 20% of your grade. And you will get out of that as much as you want out of it. There's some people in our cohort who you can see they're very invested in being very up to date and getting everything they can out of these online discussion forums. So that opportunity is there for you if you want to take advantage of it. But again, it is understanding that there's these two different types of deliverables, the little ones, which can occur several times during a week versus the larger deliverables. And you have to be ready to handle both of those with how you schedule your time.
Yes, it's really about prioritizing. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are listening right now that are going to want to reach out to all of you and ask about your time management and how you go through the program and your tips and tricks. Trevor, over to you.
One thing that we heard a lot, or that I heard a lot, I'll speak personally, before, like even during the application process and before going in, just people that I talked to, but also as we entered the program, is it's not the content that you're going to struggle with. It's not the learning. It's not the what is being taught. If you've been admitted to the program, it's a process that finds the people who are capable of doing the work. It's the ability to manage that work, and that is going to be, if you have the capacity, then you'll do fine. It's because, and the other thing that, and I actually, for all the years that I've been alive and been in business, the first time I heard of imposter syndrome was when I started this MBA program, and it was all the buzz. And I think that's what people struggle with is do I belong here? And the answer is yes. If you've been admitted, then you do belong. It's, do you have the capacity to incorporate that amount of work into your everyday life? And that's a question only you can answer.
That was really meaningful to share that about the imposter syndrome and people entering the program. And it is a bit of a buzzword, but the reason why we talk about it so much is because we do find a lot of people have imposter syndrome. They wonder, do I belong here? And thank you for affirming that if you are in the program and you've been accepted, you do belong. And thank you for sharing that. And Lara.
Thank you. One thing I was thinking to add to this is the importance of tutors and coaches. For me, I found the academic writing requirements so different than normal business writing requirements that it took a minute to get my head around that. And I worked with a writing coach that just made that really possible. And for the finance courses, I was lucky enough, my sister's an accountant, so she's been a tutor for me. And I think the amount of time that it goes into getting through the parts where you're stuck is, just everything is a lot smoother by bringing in help.
So true. Ask for help, reach out. We have different resources through the university as well. Tracy, putting you on the spot, pop something in the chat around the resources we have for students, like the Writing Center. And I see, Hunter, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I was just going to add, like, I've been asked this by like friends and colleagues, sort of how much time it is. And I would say on average, it's probably between 10 and 30 hours a week, depending on what assignments you have going on, with some weeks, especially if you're pressure prompted, going over the 30 hours.
Thank you for adding the time to it. I know people are like, just give me a time, give me an amount of hours. So thank you for adding that. Tyler.
I would just like to add to what Lara just said there, just around like, like you're building skills in certain areas and you might need extra help. The other thing is like you're in groups a lot of time as well. And you start to realize like who has what superpower. And you as a student can kind of decide like, is this something that I really want to develop? And if so, like throw me in the thing that might be a bit more difficult, or hey, like I'm really great at editing. So, I ended up editing most group papers because some people don't like doing it and I was really good at it. So it was just one of those kind of natural spots where you can build on your strengths, you can decide which weaknesses to invest in. And it's kind of iterative with your group. And We have different group changes throughout it, but it seems to kind of work. Like you just sort of meld together and you figure it out.
But I found those opportunities were also used to increase people's weaknesses. So if somebody wasn't good at something, they actually said, can I actually piggyback with this person on this piece or try it myself? And then the team can tear it apart after, or whatever that is. Yeah.
I like that. That sounds like there's opportunity for like mentoring, support. There's that opportunity to try something and fail because you're in a supportive environment with your team and they're there to help you, right? So that's great to hear. Oh,
The
Sarah.
idea of failure is a good one to actually address. The MBAs, the grading is a pass is 70%. And the first part of the MBA programs, your assignments are pass and fail. Did you hit the mark or did you not hit the mark? And do you need to do a revision? And they do a really good job of entering you in to the shallow end of the pool. And they also allow you to fail those assignments. If you're not writing to the capacity that you're going to have to by the end of the program, they're going to let you know at the beginning. And it's okay to fail. I've done it. I've failed so many assignments. I failed in one course. My first assignment, I got like an awful, atrocious mark, nowhere close to a pass. And yet somehow I ended up with an A+ at the end of the course. The courses are 9 weeks. So I went from complete failure in the first assignment to an A+ at the end of it. So it's about how you figure out what you need, what they're asking for, and then all the resources and all the supports that you can get your hands on. Some of it's going to be internal to you, but there are so many different ways to utilize the people in your team, your cohort at the university. For being, like, I'm in Victoria. One of my businesses is like next door to Royal Roads. I'm out there a lot. I've experienced so much resourceful help, and I've never been on campus for it. So I don't know if that'll help, but don't be scared about entering into something if you don't have the experience for it, and don't be afraid to fail, because you will have the opportunity to pass.
I like that, like embracing failure. Like failure is not a bad or a scary word. It's just what happens, and it can encourage you to be better and to improve and to learn. And working near the Royal Roads campus, I do stop by your bakery semi-regularly for treats too. So I want to say, if you are in Victoria, do stop by Origin Bakery. It's so delicious. But we're coming up to near the end of our time here, and I have a final question for everybody in the room, and I'm hoping that I'm addressing the questions that have been coming in the chat as they come up. So I don't see any outstanding questions there. But my question for all of you student panelists, do you have any, well, not any advice, because you've given lots of advice. What are your final words of advice for the people in the room today or listening to the recording if they're considering taking an MBA? Matt.
Well, I'm going to hit both ends of the spectrum here and say that, in my opinion, you need to learn how to be hard on yourself and learn how to be kind to yourself simultaneously, because you need to be hard on yourself to actually push yourself, to actually challenge and place some challenge on yourself. If you don't place that challenge on yourself, you're not going to get the most out of the program. But something that Tara was saying earlier about people not necessarily being level all through the program, it's 18 months or it's 31 months. Life events happen. You're going to be guaranteed that not every week is going to look the same for you. Or even if it does for you by some miracle, it's not going to be for the 4 other people you're working with in a team. So being kind to yourself and learning new strategies for being kind to the people around you while still being objective and goals-based is a real trick, and it's a real growth opportunity.
I like that. I really like that. That is good advice. Thank you. I'm gonna take that advice too, if that's okay. Trevor.
Not dissimilar to what Matt said, but my one comment is, it's your journey. Like through the whole process, again, I'll speak for myself, but I found that, you know, you're taking, you go to sessions just like this one, and you hear about all of these individual journeys, and then you're thinking, okay, that's what I can expect, but you can't. What your journey is going to be is individual to you, and you have to just be ready to roll with it. As Matt pointed out, be kind to yourself, challenge yourself, but it is your journey. And we had people in our cohort, one of my team members we only found out in the 9th month, or in the 8th month, she was pregnant, and all of a sudden she had a baby. We had people losing jobs and getting jobs, changing jobs and moving, and relationship stuff and all of the things. And no journey is going to be the same. So take all of this information and do with it what you can, but it's going to be individual to you.
So true. And life keeps happening even when you join a program. It's not like all of a sudden you're in a program and all the things in your life just pause. No, life just keeps happening. Babies are born, jobs are lost, jobs are gained. Thank you for sharing that realistic view on what the program is like. Tyler.
Yeah, so kind of along the same lines as Trevor, I would say that, the advice I'd leave you with is get really clear on why you're doing it. And so, Trevor is very clear why he was doing it. He said at the beginning, he wanted his MBA. So, what does success look like at the end of this? He walks away with his MBA. Everyone's motivation is going to be different. I didn't have an undergrad, so I wanted a degree. I wanted the ability to potentially teach at university, 20 years from now when I don't want to work anymore. And so those things were important to me. So now I'm sizing up, well, what program can deliver that to you? So you can take that to the program, but you can also take it to the courses. Like if there's a course and you're strong in accounting, maybe this is not the one that you invest 30 hours a week in doing because you're not necessarily looking to get a lot out of it. And that's okay. It doesn't matter, right? It's to Trevor's point, it's your journey. So just know what you want to get out of it and then kind of adjust your behavior to achieve that.
I think the MBA has a new tagline. The MBA, it's your journey. I'm going to take that. That's going to be the name of the next webinar. Does anybody else have anything to add? Any final words of advice related to the program, or any words of advice, a motivational quote? Hunter.
I would just say one last thing. Like a lot of people have asked me about the teamwork, group work kind of stuff. And I think there's some potential group work trauma that people have had from previous school experiences or volunteering or whatever it was. And I would say the vast majority of the time, the team is there to build you up. These are very motivated individuals. And I think I've rarely had a problem where somebody dropped the ball for the team because everybody's sort of working forward. So don't fear working with other people. It's been one of the best parts of the whole program.
Thank you for acknowledging that, because there is a bit of a fear or apprehension when people see teamwork and they wonder, what is that going to be like, and teamwork trauma from potential past programs. So thank you for sharing that. And people are very invested when they're in the MBA, and when you are in the MBA, you're invested. You want to do well in this program and you want to be a part of your team. Lara.
I was actually going to say something very similar in that the relationships that are built through this MBA journey are very real and very bonded. And it's interesting because we haven't actually met, and most of us haven't met in person. So to speak to a community aspect. And I consider this to be one of the best investments that I've made in myself in my adult life. So it's certainly very rewarding.
Thank you so much, everyone in the room, for joining us today. Thank you so much to our student panelists. This is where we use the reactions feature and give them a round of applause. Thank you for sharing all of this advice and your time and your insight. We're coming to the end of our session. I know it was just 1 o'clock, so I'm going to share a screen here. This is our contact information. I know many of you already have it, but if you do have any questions, feel welcome to reach out to us by email, check out our website, learn.more at royalroads.ca is if you are a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, learn.more.international at royalroads.ca is if you're an international citizen or a temporary resident. So I'll leave that up here. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. We're going to wrap up today's session.